What is up, guys? Coming back with you with episode 2 of All Ball, No Foul. I am your host, Alex Grimm, with my co-host, Nick Levere. And Nick, what are we bringing today?
Dude, we're bringing a lot today. I'm really excited. We're gonna talk about how excited we are that the NBA season is officially starting today. We're gonna bring up pretty interesting topics today. We're gonna talk about the Ball family. We're going to talk about, Russell Westbrook and how if he's going to be able to adjust to his new role, maybe possibly coming off the bench, and stuff like that. So I'm really excited to get at it today.
Yeah, definitely. And if you haven't watched the first episode of our podcast, we're going to have the link up ahead, above our heads right here. Mm-hmm. And what we talked about last time was the recap of last NBA season, coming into our surprises, our expectations for this upcoming season, and some of the things that we talked about in the playoffs last year. And Nick, the day is upon us, starting with the NBA season of 2022-2023. Lots of excitement. Everybody's happy to have basketball back. And I think that one of the things that we wanted to touch upon was Russell Westbrook.
Yeah, that's good. That's very interesting because obviously everyone knows that Russell Westbrook is one of the greatest point guards to ever do it. And now that he's gonna have to adjust and go into a new role of possibly coming off the bench for the first time in his career. Mm-hmm. At one point he was a top 5 player in the league. Now he's potentially coming off the bench.
Yeah, yeah, and it's kind of sad to see Russ's career the way it trajected last year. Him being a triple-double machine for the couple of years in OKC after KD left. Mm-hmm. When he won
an MVP, man.
Yeah, he won an MVP right before they got Paul George too. So it's really crazy to see the decline of Westbrook in terms of just his overall, like what people think of him as. I think everybody thought of him as a triple-double machine because for those 4 years where he's just averaging a triple-double every year, and just seeing him with LeBron, who is a ball-dominant player, doesn't really work well without the ball.
Yeah.
Westbrook being a ball-dominant player, not a spot-up shooter, and needs the ball in his hands to let Russ cook.
Yep, absolutely. I agree. I mean, that is the biggest problem is, LeBron obviously wants the ball in his hands. Russell Westbrook is so used to being a ball-dominant player. Mm-hmm. And, when you're playing with LeBron James, you're going to have to do some sacrificing. You're going to have to do some other things. Especially Russell Westbrook, he can't shoot the ball at all.
No.
He can't shoot from the corner at all. Mm-hmm. And, I like what the new Lakers coach is doing. He's trying to figure out ways to do what's best for the team and not just to please the guys that are making more money than other players. Like, for example, Russell Westbrook's making over $40 million this year.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean you have to please him in every way. You as a coach still have to figure out what's going to be best for the team to win as many games as possible, especially in a tough Western Conference. So.
100%. And one of the things with Darvingham that I really can appreciate is that he can relate to the players. Obviously, being a player himself in the league, being on the Bucks staff, having that winning culture there, instilling it into the Lakers. I know we don't necessarily want to focus with how a lot of people usually focus on the Lakers, but what we did want to do today was, again, get more into like Westbrook, because I feel Westbrook is just kind of like the scapegoat. But I think, Nick, one of the things that I'm really curious to see Westbrook is he going to actually play off the bench this year? Is he going to start? And if he does start, how long do you see it before he starts playing off the bench? Because I can't see this team being at its full potential with Westbrook starting with LeBron and AD.
Yeah, I agree. I think the best for not only for the team, but for him, to see the best version of himself is to play with the second unit. Mm-hmm. So he could actually be the guy with the ball in his hands. He could be the one pushing the ball up the floor, But the only issue is, there isn't any really shooters on this Lakers team, any consistent three-point shooters. So because Westbrook loves to kick out the shooters and stuff like that, but obviously he would get more shot attempts and he would be able to attack the rim more playing with the second unit than the first unit. But I just don't see the assist numbers or anything being what they were with OKC and even with the Wizards.
Yeah, and I think one of the things with Westbrook's game is that it's based all off his athleticism. Mm-hmm. And obviously, as you get older into the league, your body just starts to decline, and your athleticism that was once there, we've seen it with other guys, Dwayne Wade in that like last stretch with LeBron in the Big Three era. You could really see Dwayne starting to digress from his superstardom that he was at one point. You see guys like Dwight Howard, they were guys that were usually just all about athleticism. He was a big, tall guy, could jump really high, dunk the ball anywhere, block it, take it like three rows in the stand. And that's the same thing with Westbrook here, because he literally relies off of his speed and his ability to get to the hole. And I think that something that we saw last year, which was really surprising to me, was his ability to not finish. And that just didn't seem right to me. Westbrook, I know, has not necessarily been an efficient scorer. He's a volume scorer. And he relies really off of getting hot or taking a lot of shots. And, he's going to put up a big stat line. And for stat fans, it's their best dream. But for a regular fan in the NBA, it's just like you're taking 30, 40 shots, maybe hitting like 12 or 13, but you had a triple-double. So I think definitely...
I think what really hurts Russell Westbrook, obviously, is the game is evolving every year. Shooting is, pretty much the most important thing in the game now. And obviously, since he can't shoot, teams are going to lay off of him a lot, and especially it doesn't really help Westbrook that there's nobody on this team that can really shoot from the perimeter consistently either, so they don't really need to help off on shooters. So this is a really bad situation for Russell Westbrook. But it's going to be very interesting overall to see if he could manage coming off the bench, because we've seen it in the past from former, players that were superstars at one point. They were asked to come off the bench and they didn't take it, likely at all. Like, for example, like Carmelo Anthony. When he got the OKC, his role kind of changed a little bit, and then he started to go to Houston, and he played 9 games, and then they released him because he didn't want to come off the bench. And then obviously he wasn't in the league for a couple of years till he decided that, this is what's best for me. He finally understood that at one point he wasn't the player that he used to be. So he was trying to figure out not only what's the best version of himself, but what's best for any team that he's on. And that's something that Russell Westbrook needs to figure out. Whether it's with the Lakers or they decide to trade him, whether it's with the other team, it's just for the rest of his career moving forward.
And I know that everybody's heard this a million times, Russell Westbrook for Buddy Hield, Miles Turner, and 2 first-round picks. And at the end of the day, I think that the Lakers would take that if the deal is there and Russell Westbrook is playing horrendous like he did last year. And it's a good point, too, that you make with Carmelo Anthony and how his career and how he had to adjust his game. When we saw him come back into the league playing on Portland, his role was so much different than how he was the last time we had seen him playing in OKC, thinking that he was still that superstar player he was in Denver and in New York. And another person that I think that could, unfortunately, and I hope that this doesn't become the case, but AI. AI was told, hey, you need to become a bench player. We want you to come off the bench. You're no longer a starter, but we could still use you as like a 6th man. And he didn't want to do that, and he wanted to still be AI. And at that point, he kind of got blackballed from the league, if you think about it, because he still had a couple of years left, and that's what I can see with Westbrook. I think Westbrook's an energy player. He's gonna get fans in the stand. That any night you see Westbrook, something's gonna happen. Rocking the baby, him putting up a triple-double,
but him arguing with a fan,
exactly, or cussing at a bunch of babies in the bubble. So I think that with Westbrook, it's just going to be a wait-and-see game. I really do hope that Westbrook does have a better season this year than he did last year. It was sad to see that. I know that for a lot of people that hoped, and especially Lakers fans that hoped that Westbrook was going to be something, maybe things are different under Darvin Ham, but...
it's just really hard because when you play for a team like the Los Angeles Lakers, the historic franchise that they are, everyone's going to be paying attention to that franchise. So I feel like it wouldn't get as much attention if Russell Westbrook was on a different team and he had as bad of a year that he did past year. But now that he's playing with not only LeBron James, but with the Los Angeles Lakers, of course, the whole sports world is going to pay attention
to
how you're playing.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think that kind of gets us to the next topic too. Talking about your LA stardom, the Ball family, as we've seen. The trajectory looked like it was really going up last year. You had Lonzo signing that big 4-year deal in Chicago, LaMelo being Rookie of the Year, coming into his second year and looking to take that step up. And then with Jello with the affiliate G League team for the Hornets, everything looked like it was up until the past few weeks. So, Nick, the last time we were talking with the podcast, I know that we were in the preseason, but how do you feel about the Ball family right now after everything that's happened?
They're really quiet right now. You obviously don't hear anything from LeVar Ball. Lonzo, God knows how long he's going to be out for.
Yeah.
Hope, as Bulls fans, obviously I'm wearing a Bulls hat. I mean, hopefully we get him back, as quickly as possible. And obviously LaMelo's going to be out to start the year. They don't know how long. And obviously the Hornets, they tried it out with LiAngelo Ball once again, and then they cut him. So, I mean, it's going down a downwards path right now, but I think it would definitely get picked back up when Lonzo gets back. He fits really well with the Bulls players, as you've seen it from last season. I mean, they were the number 1 seed before he went down, and they go from 1 to 6 seed like that. And obviously LaMelo Ball, wasn't that much talent in Charlotte, and he still at least got them into the play-in, and he was an all-star. What I mean? So LaMelo had a great, second year last year, and I could see him improving even more, not only this year, but for the remainder of his career.
Yeah, and I can see definitely LaMelo. I think that this injury is not going to necessarily derail his career. I think that he, out of the 3 Ball brothers, has the potential to be the star player. Still needs to work a little bit on his jump shot. Needs to be a little smarter with the ball, with efficiency wise, because he still does jack up a lot of shots, sometimes unnecessary shots, but he definitely has the ability to become one of the top 10 players in the league if he continues to dedicate himself. And it really is unfortunate to see with Lonzo too. The meniscus, I know that it was a partial tear when they discovered it back in January of this year, and thinking that he was going to come back, ramp up for the playoffs. Obviously, when they got the news that his ramp up was not getting anywhere close to being at full participant in practice, and they said that he was having setbacks, you started getting those D-Rose vibes. Bad knees for a point guard in Chicago always spells a bad time for us, and our prayers are with Lonzo and his family with that, and we hope for a safe and quick recovery for him. And Jello,
I think he's officially done. I think we're, as NBA fans, I don't think we're ever going to hear, Jello Ball again, unless if he's playing in the Drew League.
Yeah.
And in the offseason, but other than that, I don't see anything anymore. I think as Bulls fans are very scared of Lonzo because he's had history of injury problems for every franchise he's been. I mean, with the Lakers, he missed games. New Orleans Pelicans, he missed games, and that's why New Orleans was hesitant to match the offer that the Bulls gave him.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah, and I'd be lying if I said I wasn't concerned when we did sign Lonzo last year.
Yeah.
One of my biggest problems with him is that, like you said, every year he missed at least 15 to 20 games.
Yeah.
And the concerning part is that as a young player, if you're not staying healthy at that point, we've seen it so many times, high draft picks get injured a lot, unfortunately have a derailed career.
Yeah.
Then you're sitting there wondering, why didn't we take somebody else with that pick that ends up becoming a star? So Lonzo... If you could redraft that draft, I know Lonzo wouldn't be the second overall pick. He'd still be a top 10 pick, I think, in my opinion. But in a draft where you had guys
can you imagine Philly if they drafted Tatum?
I mean, things still worked out for them, but not. I know what you mean, though. That would be cold.
Nice.
That'd be cold. Tatum and Embiid together, that would have been a nice duo. And who knows what could have happened? Because I don't think they would have gotten Ben Simmons the year after. No. Or was that the year before?
No, I think that Ben Simmons was the year before.
Year before, okay.
Yeah, because they had, then they traded the pick.
Yes.
With Ball,
Yeah, no, you're right. But anyways, to get back to it, though, is that When it comes to the Ball family, I think that one of the biggest things that I can appreciate was LeVar's ability to not just market his sons, but show the love he had as a father. And I think that that goes without saying that in the NBA, unfortunately, a lot of times is that you don't always see these guys having a father figure in their life. And obviously when you see players like LeBron who didn't grow up with a father, it's really awesome to see that.
And you see a lot of these NBA players, they're from really bad neighborhoods in the inner cities, and luckily, they didn't follow what they've seen in the streets on a daily basis, and they just worked hard on their crafts every single day, and now look at where they're at right now, and with LeVar Ball too, I know he says some crazy things, and a lot of people, hate that he's saying crazy things, but he's a marketing genius.
He is. He is. I mean, he's on the AT&T commercial. Yeah. He knew how to get himself in there, and he knew that talking his sons up, especially Lonzo, who was a top prospect for the NBA at the time he was at UCLA, it wasn't a bad marketing tactic for him to use, and credit to him because
he knew what to say at the right time. That's pretty much what it was, especially when Lonzo was, it was during the NBA draft, process. LeVar went on firstly talking about how he thinks he's better than Steph Curry, put him on the Warriors with those guys and see what they could do, and it just drew a lot of attention, to the media, and that's why he was starting to get interviewed by everybody on ESPN.
Yeah. And shout out to LeVar. I was at the Bulls and Hornets game last year when LaMelo and Lonzo played each other. And one thing I did see LeVar do a lot was he went to every fan that came up to him and he took a photo and signed their autograph. So I think that's really dope to see that because a lot of times when you have celebrities, they don't have time to meet every fan, but he really did give his attention to everybody that was there. And I think when you have people chanting Lonzo's better in the stands, that you've made it big and that your sons are really the center of attention of the game. And, that was all part of his plan.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think LeVar did really good, especially with LaMelo. Obviously the whole UCLA thing, obviously he didn't go to college. Yeah. And obviously he got a signature shoe that he couldn't play in the NCAA. Yep. And LeVar found, a perfect spot for him in Australia. Yep. He played in a very talented league. He wasn't on a good team, but he was able to market LaMelo in the way that all these top high school prospects now are starting to do the same thing as LaMelo. He really started the trend, him and RJ Hampton now. Yeah. A lot of these guys, they want to get the bag now, so. Yeah,
and I think that, too, with the way the rules are becoming now, obviously with the NCAA rules where now your collegiate athletes can get paid for their likeness and their persona and everything about them, they can actually profit off of that. Yeah. And I think that that's going to also jump people with the way the G League has kind of been reignited, because when we're seeing this, and this is where we wanted to get with our next point, was teams that are going to tank for Victor Wembanyama.
Oh, yeah.
And him.
A lot of teams are going to do that this year, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, and Scoot. And they had their game against each other, and you see a EuroLeague player versus one of our Ignite players, and I think that that's just going to kind of show the way that a lot of high prospects are going to start playing in the future. They're not necessarily going to go take the college route, because they could honestly just if they drop the age back to 18, they would just be able to go out of high school. So
yeah, and what's good about what they're doing too is they don't have to go to college, they don't have to take classes, they can just focus on strictly basketball and their weight training 24/7. Yeah, they don't have to wake up early for class or anything like that. So if I was one of those top prospects today, I personally wouldn't take the college route. No. Still, even with the NIL and stuff like that, I still wouldn't take the college route.
Yeah, and to when you see somebody like Victor Wembanyama, who's already profiting off of his ability to play basketball at such a young age, and something that I want to really point out with Victor is that he's a 7'4" with a huge wingspan, can dribble and pull up like KD.
It's insane.
He has the size of a guy like Giannis, who, if he really, bulks up and gets to Giannis' size, who's stopping him?
Yeah, it's it's incredible what he's going to be able to do in the future if he keeps working at it 24/7. I just hate. It's unfair to him that they're putting all this pressure on him, like how they did, obviously, to like LeBron being the quote-unquote chosen one of this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Because now you're seeing a lot of these sports experts are saying that this is the best prospect we've seen since LeBron. Now they're putting his name with LeBron's name. He hasn't even stepped on the floor in an NBA game yet. It's unfair to the kid, in my opinion, what the media is doing to him. But at the same time, I see where they're coming from because his talent is just ridiculous. We haven't seen a prospect like that's 7'3", that could pull up, a few feet behind the three-point line, that's got a handle, that could have a mid-range jumper, he could post up, he could literally do everything on the basketball court.
Yeah, and he's only 18, 19 years old. So when you think about it too, his ability to really grow into an NBA superstar is very possible because he's young, he's raw still, and I don't think he's even gotten to his full potential. Yeah. Like you said, he's able to do everything on the floor, up and down. He's a two-way player, and a lot of guys at that size too usually move awkwardly, like a Boban Marjanovic or like a Kristaps Porzingis, where you can tell they're a big man, but you just can't tell with Victor. Victor plays like he's a guard or a forward, and I think that's really impressive, and I think it's really rare to see that.
It's kind of like Chet Holmgren, unfortunately. You won't be able to see him this year.
No, we will not. And imagine if OKC was able to have Victor and Chet and SGA and Josh Giddey. That is a stacked
and still
team.
A lot of draft picks to go.
Yes, sir.
Too, so,
yes, sir.
Yeah.
Sam Presti, the wizard of draft picks, and I think it's kind of ironic because Adam Silver is really trying to put the stop to tanking with the play-in tournament. More teams are eligible to possibly make the playoffs. Obviously, we know that 1 through 6 is a lock. 7 through 10 have to play each other in order to get into the playoffs. So, Nick, do you see any teams, like even at the beginning of the year, even this week, you can already tell are going to be tanking?
There's a few. I mean, I think teams are going to be trying their best to start the year, but once they realize their best is still nowhere near like the mediocrity of teams in the NBA, then they're going to start tanking maybe 20 plus games in. I feel like I don't think it's going to go right off the bat. They can't make it that obvious.
No.
But there's a multitude of teams that they know that they could potentially get their hands on this kid.
Yeah.
Why not? I mean,
I could see it.
Yeah.
I think especially a team like I would even say
even Utah.
Yeah, I would say
they're
Utah.
Not gonna be good at all.
Utah definitely for sure. Houston possibly. I know that they just got Jabari Smith Jr. and they have Jalen Green, but why not?
I mean, Porter's good too.
Yeah,
I like him. That'd be a nice core, especially if Houston ends up getting that number one pick.
Or OKC. OKC could get Victor. Indiana. I think Indiana's going to be the one team we're going to obviously see tank. They're shopping players around. Miles Turner, they don't really want to hold on to him anymore because of what he's going to command in the free agent market.
Yep.
And you got even teams, I would even say a team that I don't think everybody's going to think about, but maybe even the Knicks. If Jalen Brunson and they don't play well at the beginning of the year, Julius Randle might get moved. I know people are hoping the Knicks are going to come back, but that team just I don't know, man. They struck out.
They're looking like they spent so much money on just 3 guys. Just they'll make a plan at best. I feel like on the way that the roster's constructed right now, they call it, Jalen Brunson, RJ Barrett, Julius Randle.
Yeah.
I mean, they got some nice players, but it's just that the East is really, really tough now.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of teams, especially the Cavs in the offseason, got better. Obviously, Atlanta with the trade with Murray. The Bulls added some veteran pieces that I feel like improved their bench a lot.
Oh, 100%. Drummond.
And then I think Brooklyn's going to be better. They got something to prove this year. Obviously, Milwaukee, Boston are still probably the top 2 teams in the Eastern Conference. Philadelphia, Harden took a massive pay cut just for them to bring PJ Tucker in.
Oh, yeah.
So the East is... I forgot to mention Miami. They made it to the conference finals last year.
Yeah, Miami.
So, I mean, that's how good the Eastern Conference is. And I just named like 7 teams already. So I feel like there's only one more spot left. And I think Detroit's going to be...
Detroit is definitely...
That's a team that nobody's talking about. I think they could make a play-in. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if they got the 8th seed in the East.
Do you know the team that I'm saying out west that nobody's talking about is Sacramento?
Yeah.
And everybody's just kind of not going to say anything, but they have De'Aaron Fox, DeMonte Sabonis, and they got Kevin Huerter in that trade.
Yep.
And they did add a couple pieces like a Malik Monk who on
They
the
got a
Lakers
solid
last year.
bench.
Yeah, they have a solid
Yeah.
bench. And Davion Mitchell's going to also be coming off the bench, who was a solid draft pick just 2 years ago. So
And Harrison Barnes is nice.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think that they can
Like, they don't have
definitely
like the star, but they
No.
just have a lot of good, talented players
Yeah.
all around. From top to bottom.
And
I
yeah,
like the
you've
team.
seen with the preseason. I know that we like to say don't invest too much in the preseason, but they've looked good in the preseason.
Yeah.
I know they played the Lakers twice, so it's kind of like, okay, you're beating up on a team that isn't playing
Looks
their
so
players.
dysfunctional
Yeah,
right now.
yeah. So they're dysfunctional. They're not playing their players. It's hard to really tell. So I got to ask you, were there any surprises from the preseason where you feel like that team just kind of don't rely too much off of what you've seen so far and really focus on the regular season? Because I feel like I saw a lot of guys putting up crazy stat lines in preseason that I don't ever see. So, Nick, I'll let you take first stab at that.
Yeah, I mean, me personally, I don't really. I mean, I watched all the games. I try to with preseason and stuff, but when it comes to rather the teams that I'm rooting for that are either winning or losing, I'm not really too concerned right now, especially for the Bulls. Like, for example, like DeMar DeRozan didn't play too well in the preseason, but I'm not concerned at all because I know what he's capable of doing on an every night basis. I mean, he was in the MVP conversation for 75% of the season, so I'm not really worried about it. But if I was like a fan of like the Lakers, then I'd be really concerned because there's already drama, and Brooklyn, they look like they're actually going to play as a team this year. So, I mean, I'm not really sold on hitting the panic button if the team that I'm rooting for is not playing good in the preseason, but what are your thoughts on the preseason?
I think that...
I'm like up in the air.
So I have two things to say about that. I think the first thing is that, yes, for like teams that are right now letting their younger players have their opportunity to show up. Yep. I think that it's good, but I think that also it just kind of, they could have one or two breakout games, but then never get to that point in the regular season. We saw that with Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan had one game where I think he had like 6 threes, but then he's kind of disappeared. And sometimes with the preseason, like I saw, obviously we know a guy like John Morant is going to go ham in the regular season.
Ballistic.
But when I'm seeing him putting up like 32 and 7 in the preseason, I'm just like, okay, like that's crazy, but I never usually see that. I don't feel like I've seen that in the preseason. You don't see that
from star players cooking like that.
Yeah.
I think that's what you're trying to say.
Yeah, what I'm trying to say is that like I just don't usually see that. So how the intensity of how they're really playing, is it really up there? Because I mean, LeBron was going off on like one game.
Yeah.
I know that we saw other guys like Tatum, Embiid, KD went off in a game. Yeah. Like I just feel like there's not like the level of defense is just not there at that point. And obviously, it's the preseason. Nobody's going to be playing at 100%.
And I think people just don't want to get hurt, and then they're missing games to start the season and stuff. Especially as a coach, it's obviously you want your star players to play. Especially you want them starting in the game. To build that team chemistry and stuff. Especially if you added new pieces to your team, you got to see how it's going to work. But at the same time, you don't want to play them too much. But it was weird to see a lot of these star players' stat lines like 30 points in just 18 minutes of play. I'm like, what is this? This is insane.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
But and again, I think that's where we kind of have to think about taking into consideration of how much these players are really playing at the level that we're going to see in the regular season. Yeah. So I would say that we'll see what happens, and obviously with tonight, with the Sixers, Celtics, and then the Lakers and Warriors, Nick, what are you thinking for your first two predictions of the year?
Well, hopefully they're two really good games. I expect that Philly-Boston game to be, a tight battle from start to finish. But according to the preseason with the Lakers, I just don't see them having any shot of winning. But, ring ceremonies, the Warriors might come out flat because they're highly emotional after getting their rings and stuff. So I'm going to go with Philly actually winning against Boston. Okay. And then I think the Warriors are going to come out flat. I think the Lakers are surprisingly going to have the lead at halftime, but I see the Warriors pulling it out. So I got the Warriors in Philly.
Okay, so Warriors in Philly. Okay, I like the picks. I'm definitely going to go with Philly. I think that the resurgence of James Harden is going to happen this year. Mm-hmm. I think that what he said that he did in the offseason, really focusing on his body, training, getting in the lab, not going out to Paris with little baby, doing things that he shouldn't have been doing and focusing on himself, I think is huge. A year with Embiid under his belt now is going to help with their pick and roll game. Yep. I think adding a guy like PJ Tucker with the 3-and-D can shoot the corner three. Obviously, another year of Tyrese Maxey. I think he's going to be...
he's going to be one of those players that you're going to see massive improvements this year. I love Tyrese Maxey.
And Montrezl Harrell was like an underrated signing. I know he's had some legal trouble, and I know that nobody was signing him, but hey, you know what? The one thing that Philly has struggled with consistently is not having a backup really play for Joel a consistent amount, except the year they had Dwight. I feel like Dwight, that was the year that they lost to the Hawks. Yep. So that's something too, is that we'll see this roster, which I think looks really good right now and on paper. Mm-hmm. I think it's going to beat the Celtics. I think the Celtics are going to be in that, like the hangover of like the championship. I think they're going to come out a little flat-footed today. I think Ime Udoka, all the stuff that's going on with that. Yeah. It just kind of feels like it's just going to be a lot that's going on, and I think that you're going to see Philly really come out strong to begin with. No disrespect to Tatum or Brown. I think they're going to have great games. I just don't see Philly losing this game tonight. In terms of the Lakers and the Warriors, I'm going to go a little bit opposite of what you're saying. Mm-hmm. So I do have the Warriors winning tonight. I don't think the Lakers are going to win. I think the dysfunctionalism in that team right now is too much. They're going to be without Troy Brown, Thomas Bryant, and I'm blanking on the third. Oh, Dennis Schroeder. They don't have, so they're missing three key guys that were supposed to be rotation players. Yep. The Warriors, like you said, they're going to be having a championship ring night. Mm-hmm. It's all about them. You come out a little bit.
I just think they're going to be flat in the first quarter. And when I say the Lakers are going to have the lead at half, I would just say it might only be like a 1-2 point kind of game. And then I think the Warriors are going to settle down, and then third quarter, second half, they're going to blow them out. I just think with LeBron, he's going to come out guns blazing. Yeah. And I think he's going to have a really, really good first half. Definitely. I mean, he's still going to have a good game overall. I mean, he'll still play great in the second half. I mean, it's LeBron James. But I just think the Warriors are going to come out a little flat. The Lakers are going to get a little lead, like a surprising lead. And I think the Warriors are going to wake up after that.
Yeah, and I could see that for sure. I think that it would be like a close game, Warriors up by a couple, like going into the half. Mm-hmm. I think that what would happen is that I would say that the Warriors take over in the third quarter, and LeBron has a comeback in the fourth quarter, gets to a close game, but the Lakers come up too short at the end to win the game. LeBron's going to have a great game, and it's going to be the same thing again, the dysfunctionalism all over again. But that's just our predictions for this game, but I think both of us agree, Warriors and Sixers tonight. Yep. A lot of basketball to talk about, Nick, this upcoming season.
Oh, I can't wait. This year, there's a lot of good teams. There's a lot of pieces that moved. I can't wait to see how Donovan Mitchell is with Cleveland. Yeah. Trae Young wanted Murray bad. They got it for him. Yeah. It's interesting. Now you're starting to see which teams really tanked. Like Utah, they got rid of Mitchell and Rudy Gobert. Mm-hmm. Now they're in a full rebuild. That was a team that made the playoffs pretty much every year for a while now. With Denver, now they're going to have Porter and Murray. Hopefully they stay healthy. Yeah. The Clippers, Oh,
yeah. I mean, it's going
to be crazy. This season's going to be insane.
Yeah, and I think the resurgence. I think something that we've talked about off camera was players that have something to prove this year. Yeah. And guys like KD, LeBron, Kyrie, even guys like Julius Randle, and a couple other like big names, even Kawhi coming back from the injury. I think there's a lot of guys that have kind of felt like their presence has gone unnoticed for the last year, 2 years. And this is the year where they're going to remind everybody who they are. And I think it's going to really start this first week of the season. And I think that's just kind of going to be the storyline we're going to see that's going to go throughout.
Yeah, I completely agree.
So,
yeah.
Thank you guys again for if you've stayed to the whole video. So for everybody that is watching on YouTube, subscribe right here. If you are listening to this on Spotify or anywhere you're listening this to, thank you for listening to another episode of All Ball, No Foul. I am Alex. This is Nick.
Mm-hmm. And also follow our social media pages. We have an Instagram now, we have a Twitter account, and we're going to be working on getting a Facebook account shortly.
Yep.
So make sure to follow us on our social medias for, updates moving forward. So
yeah, and have a good night, guys. Enjoy the beginning of the NBA season.